Okay, so I've never learned how to make water simulations in Blender, because every time I tried to use the physics fluid modifier, it didn't exactly work and I got frustrated and stopped using it. So this week I decided to really take my time and try and learn how to make a water simulation in Blender. So once I've learned it, I'm going to check back in with you guys and show you a small tutorial on how you can also use it. Okay, so now the tutorial. So basically it's really simple. First we will add a cube. This cube will be our domain. In the physics panel we will give it a fluid and set it to domain and set it to liquid. We can scale this up a bit, so like this. Okay, after that we will add another cube. This cube will also be a fluid, but instead of a domain it will be a flow. But we need to make sure that it's also set to liquid. Like this. Okay, once we've done that, we can add a plane. This plane will also be a fluid, but instead of a domain or a flow, it will be an effector. And we will need to set it to its planar. I'm going to scale this up so it fits the entire domain. Like this. Once we've done this, we can basically already render the water simulation. So if we do that, we can scroll down in the domain settings, set the type to all and press bake. Okay, once it's done baking, we can press the spacebar and you can see a few particles falling on the ground. These particles will simulate our waters, but we want to have a mesh. So in our domain, click free all and press the icon next to mesh. Once you've done that, you can press bake all again. Once it's done baking, you can press the spacebar again, and there we have our water simulation. But it doesn't look really good. So let's make it better. Go to our, let's rename this to flow. Let's go to our flow source and set the flow behavior to inflow. We will give this a keyframe so that it will have 100 frames of inflow, and on the 101st frame it will be turned to geometry. If we bake our simulation right now, let's free it all and bake it again. If we press spacebar once it's done baking again, you can see that we have a nice water simulation, like this. Okay, there are a few things that I want to say before we move on to another simulation which I want to make. So, for example, as you can see, the water is not touching our effector plane. If we want the mesh to come closer to the plane, we need to turn up the resolution division. Another thing is if you want to add, for example, here in the domain settings, you can add particles. And for example, if you want to add spray and foam particles. If you would render this, Okay, so we can see that this takes a longer time to render because there are more particles, and that is normal. But once it's done and we play it, we don't see any spray or foam particles. This is because if you go in the particle properties, spray and foam are set to halo, but we want them to be set to object, both to object. Then we will add for example, an icosphere, and set both the foam and the spray particles to the icosphere. And as you can see here, now we can see all of the foam and spray particles. I would recommend that let's see, what did I write down? Yes, the wave potential maximum, I would increase that with 4. Trapped air potential, I will also increase with 4. Kinetic potential, yes, this one, we also multiply with 4. And I think it's the rate. Yes, I will divide these also with 4, these both. If we have done that, if we press bake again, you can see that our render time, the baking time, is a lot shorter because we have decreased the amount of particles which are going to be in a simulation. So once it's done rendering again, we can play it, and as you can see, there are a lot less particles in the simulation. And you can play around with this and create as much or as less particles as you like. Also, I would recommend, to make this simulation look a lot better, to turn down the particle radius in the mesh to somewhere around this. Okay, so finally we have this simulation, and it looks kind of good. You can give it you can give the water and also the icosphere, which are the foam and spray particles, you can give those a few materials, play around with the settings of the domain, and turn up the resolution of the divisions. But you can play around with it and create a beautiful water simulation yourself. Okay, so to end this video, I want to make one more simulation. I really want to make a water simulation of waves crashing into a beach with foam and spray particles and with some rocks in the scene. So we are going to do that right now.